guys, welcome back to yet another video. Welcome to Wisdom Couch, another episode of Wisdom Couch. So on today's video I am doing it, well, first of all, disclaimer, I am shooting this video again. I just finished shooting it and it was long and my phone complained, but I'm shooting it again out of obedience because this comes after a dream that I had last night. That is when the Holy Spirit revealed to me, you are in a cell, in a prison cell, and you are chained by shame and regrets. And he told me to talk to you guys about it, and hopefully it'll help someone out there. Before we start a video, I want to read a verse in Job 36 verse 8. It says, "But if people are bound in chains, suffering for what they have done, God shows them their sins and their pride. He makes them listen to his warning." This is 8, 9, 10. Okay. He makes them listen to his warning to turn away from evil. If they obey God and serve him, they live out their lives in peace and prosperity. So the dream that I had was the dream that I've been having, but yesterday was just like The dream that I had was I was in my high school uniform, but in my primary school. I was wearing my high school uniform in primary. Today when the Holy Spirit woke me up, he was like, you are bound to shame and regret, and you need to break free away from it. You've already been delivered from it, but you need to break free away from it. And this testimony is one of the testimonies that I wanted to take from the ground there. Like like it's one of those testimonies that I was ashamed to tell. I just felt like it's so embarrassing to tell, and I had promised myself that I will never talk about it. Even when I have grandkids, great grandkids, I will never talk about it. But God happened. He was like, you need to talk about it so that you be free from this. So I'm just gonna share a little testimony, and it started when I was a little baby. And let me just start where how it all happened with my school years and everything. So I started standard 1. Well, first of all, kindergarten when I was 2 years old. And I think I had graduated from kindergarten when I was 4, because at the age of 5, the kindergarten had a primary school that wanted me to go there, and it was a private public school. And my mom was like, yes. My dad was like, no. And it actually caused me to stay home for another year at the age of 5. So I spent like 1 year, like a whole year at home. And I remember it was very sad because we lived in Pigwe, and my dad was a soldier, right? So we lived in the BDF campus, and our house was literally next to the BDF kindergarten, and I used to just stand somewhere there next to the kindergarten and watch kids play. And it was very sad because teachers would just shoo shoo shoo, get away, would literally chase me out, and I would go home. And it was very, like, I don't know, because I was a kid, I don't remember the feelings. And the following year, at the age of 6, well, I wasn't 6 years, but I was still 5, and that is when my dad won the case of me going to a public school. I went to a public school. I started my standard 1 at the age of 5 going to 6, right? And that was in 2006. And I lived with my mom and my dad and my brother and my cousin. Being at the age of 6, I started my standard 1, and that is when my dad, at the end of the year, my dad got a letter that he is transferring. At the same time, my mom got a letter that she's also transferring. So my dad was moving to Gabs. My mom was moving to, like, I think it was in far away there in Kalahari. I think it was like 7 or 8 hours drive from Gaborone, where my dad was living. And my mom was like, you're living with your dad. And my brother had finished high school, and my cousin had finished high school. And 2007, well, my mom and my dad decided that I live with my dad was settling, so my mom was like, you know what, while your dad is settling, how about you go and live with your aunt? And that was in 2007. I was supposed to do that too, but I think I lived at home for a year. I didn't go to school, so I lived with my aunt for like a whole year, but not going to school. And they were also looking for schools for me, and at that time my sister stepped in. She was like, oh, how about I take her to school? How about she goes to a private school? From there, transition happened. After 1 year at home, 2008, that is when I went to do standard 2, not with the people that I was with, because the people that I came with, they were in 2008. I went to a private school, right? In 2008 they were in standard 3, but I went to I went to standard 2. I went back to standard 2 because I was a very shy girl. Like, I was so shy. I didn't cooperate in class. I remember I had transitioned from a public to a private school, and I just, everybody was so confident in that class, and I wasn't confident, and they were speaking a lot of English, and I was like speaking a lot of Setswana. And that just took a toll from me. And I remember the first day of school, my teacher wanted me to share the table with her, and we were 2 new students, and the other one was sitting with the other students. I sat with the teacher, and it kind of hindered me from making friends. Like, I remember when it was break time, they went out to play. I was just still there in the teacher's table, and I ate in the teacher's table. Even when the teacher was like, you can go out and play, and I was like, I think I would just go and just sit alone. I was very shy, guys. It was just so crazy. It was so crazy. So that was when the teacher was like, she felt like I'm not on the same level as the other students. So she called up my mom, she called up my dad, and everybody, and they came into a decision that I should go back to standard 1. And I went back to grade 1, and grade 1 was perfect. I had good friends, it was perfect. And I lived in Gabs for like from standard 1 to standard 3, so probably 3 years. That is when my mom's friend called up my mom, and she told my mom that I'm not okay. She should come and pick me up and live, so that I'm able to live with my mom, and that I'm not, I'm not living quite well here. She was like, a young girl needs to live with her mom, and it's not okay that a young woman is living with her dad, and I'm not taken care of quite well, and I'm not okay. And that is when I started living with my mom, and we lived in Kakia, which is hours away. I think it was like 6 hours away from my dad, still in the Khalafadi side. I didn't like Kakia. I didn't like it because I was transitioning from a private school to a public school, and I didn't like it. I remember we would visit my dad, and I would just hide. I would hide from places, and my dad would just try to find me, and trying to persuade me to go and just give me 50 baht, just go, take 50 kula, and I would take it. It's like, okay. And they would try to talk me into going, and I just didn't like it. I would tell them every single time, I don't like it there. I don't like it. Even my mom saw it, and my dad, they saw it, and my mom also didn't like it there. So she pushed for a transfer, and we moved to Sarowe. That is where I spent my whole life, in Sarowe. So going into the transition, I went from a public school to a private school. We moved to Sarowe, and Sarowe is sort of like a town. It's not a village, it's a town. Well, it's a village that is sort of like a town. So we moved in Sarowe, and that is where I transitioned from a public school to a private school. I went to a private school, and in Sarowe I liked it because my mom had her cousins. Her cousins had a child who is my age, and there were family friends over there who had family friends who had kids around my age also. So I remember I lived with my family friends, and so I'm fast forwarding, guys, sorry. I went, so going to that private school, so there was a test interview that you have to take, and for you to go to get into the school and go to proceed, right? And I didn't do well in the test, and the principal was like, he sat me and my mom down. He was like, you have two options. It's either she goes a grade back or goes to another school, because we cannot allow her to go to proceed to the next grade. Well, she performed poorly in this test, and that is when I said, no, I'm not going to go a grade back. I would rather go to a public school, because I'm used to that school. I'm used to public schools, and I understood how they learned. I got the notion and motion and whatever. I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back. That is when I told my mom, and my mom was like, well, this will be our little secrets between the two of us, and we will not tell anybody that you went back. And I still said, no, I don't want to go back. And she was like, please, you have to go back. You have to go back. And I was like, okay, because she's my mom. I hated disappointing her. Everything she said I would do, basically. I would just say okay. And that is when I went back to another grade, to the grade. And that was in 2012, the beginning of 2012. That was in 2012 when I went back. So basically I had to go back, and my age mates, I didn't like it, because I was in class with 9-10-year-olds, and 9-10-year-olds, and I was in class with them. So my age mates were like above me, they were like in grade, because I went back. I was supposed to do grade 5. I went to standard 4, grade 4, right? We call them standard 4. And what else? What happened? Yeah, and I didn't like it. I didn't like the transition. I was so ashamed. I didn't like it that I acted up. I remember I acted up in school, where I was just, I'd say bullying, but not necessarily bullying my age mates. Because there was this particular situation that had happened where I was just like, oh, you think you're this and this and this, to the person who was above me in a grade, but my age mate. I didn't like it. So I kind of like, and then she came with her squad, and then they did this and this, and it was a whole mess. And yeah, that affected me so bad that I hated it. But at the same time, that is when I met God. I got saved at 12. So before everything, I come from a family that I wouldn't say believe in God, but also believe in ancestral worship. So I kind of like grew up in that whole situation, which is another testimony, guys. So I didn't know anything about God. So when my mom was settling, I went to live with my family friends. I call them my cousins, and they were always talking about God, the Bible, the end times, and I was just so curious. So I was curious, and I remember when we closed school, I went with them at their home village, and I remember I would just read the Bible. I was so curious about God, and I would read the Bible every single day. Read the Bible. And I remember, not that I was just like, I'm not boasting or anything. I remember I was sleeping, because my cousin told me this. I was sleeping on the couch, and her mom was like, by the way, I got saved in a Jehovah's Witness church. So yeah, if you know anything about the Jehovah's Witness, you can research. She was like, oh, Benes, because my nickname is Ben, my home name is Ben. Ben is going to go to paradise. And I was like, yeah. But anyway, I fell in love with Jesus, and as I began to fall in love with Jesus, the devil means he's attacking. The devil was attacking. So that is when we opened schools, I went to live with my mom. And when I lived with my mom, I kind of separated from reading the Bible, from going to church, from praying, not praying, but reading the word, and from church and everything. And that is when the devil came with fire by force, guys. He came, and that is when maladaptive daydreaming started happening in my life. So I'm gonna quickly share with you what maladaptive daydreaming is. So maladaptive daydreaming is a condition where excessive vivid daydreamings interfere with daily life, causing distress and functional impairment. So I was very, very, before maladaptive daydreaming, I was very stressed. So I'm just gonna share with you how my stress affected me before maladaptive daydreaming. So I remember I used to have sharp pains in my heart, and I knew as a child, you know as a human being, you know something is wrong. That I remember I would actually hold my heart, and heartbeat wasn't normal, and I knew, and I used to have sharp pains, and I didn't even tell my mom, I didn't tell anybody. I regularly had sharp pains, like almost every day. And I remember I had it in class, and it, because I was standing up, and it came, that sharp pain came, and I knew that if I stay in a particular position, it's going to slowly but surely, it's going to be okay, like it's going to leave. And I remember my teacher was like, "Are you okay?" And I just told her, "I have a sharp pain in my heart." And she was like, "Well, do you want us to call the doctor? Do you want us to call your parents?" And I was like, "No, I just have to hold on to this position, and as I hold on to this position, it will slowly disappear." And she was like, "Okay," but she was so worried. I could tell that she's very worried. And I would just test it out by being in a normal position. I was like, "Oh, okay, it's okay." And I had an anxiety attack before maladaptive daydreaming. I had an anxiety attack, and that anxiety attack, everybody was there. It was like the holidays, and I think, yeah, it was the holidays, New Year's, whatever. I had it was not an anxiety attack, but a panic attack. Either way, those two. And it was so hard. And the next day I went, and as I said, I come from a family that believes in a lot of traditional healing and everything. So my uncle, he is a traditional doctor, and the next morning my mom took me to my uncle, and my uncle was like, "No, it was a panic attack. It was, it was a panic attack." And that day, I remember that day we went back home in Gabs, and as I was playing with my friends, I knew that I cannot breathe. My breathing is not okay. And that is when it wasn't an asthma attack, but along those lines, I couldn't breathe properly. And I went home, I rushed home, and I told my mom, I can't breathe. And that is when my brother came, and he took the car, and we rushed to the hospital. And that is when I told them I cannot breathe, and they diagnosed me with they told me, I think they said that I have anxiety. Yeah, that's what they say. I was young. They say that it's a panic. I think they say that, yeah, it was a panic attack. I have a panic attack. So maladaptive daydreaming, I started creating scenarios of perfect, like so nice scenarios in my head, where I lived in this perfect world where I don't disappoint people, where I don't be compared. Because, okay, before that, let me explain it. When it comes to comparison, I used to be compared a lot as a child, that I dimmed my own light. Like for example, I felt like I'm not deserving of anything. These people are deserving of everything. They deserve the good things. Even if something beautiful would happen in my life, I just wouldn't like it, because I just felt like someone deserves this. I don't deserve it. I just felt like, my life is not worth deserving. Like, what's going on? Because I was constantly compared. That when I maladaptive dreamt, I would create a perfect girl in my head, and the perfect girl had every single thing, and she was confident, loving, kind, all these beautiful things, guys. And I just, and it led me to start impressing people. And I started impressing people so bad, especially my family. I wanted to impress these people, that they see me the way that I want them to see me. That it affected me. It costed me my happiness, my peace. So let me share with you how bad my maladaptive daydreaming was. I'm gonna give you an example. Me and you would talk, right? Like, we're talking. You're telling me how your day is. Suddenly, I'm not there. It's like my physical body is there, but I'm not there. I would run, I would walk, I would be in class and try to listen to teachers, but my physical body was there, but I was not there, if you guys understand. It was like my physical body is on earth, but my spirit, my soul, let me just say my soul, it wasn't there. I wasn't there. I wasn't living in the moment. I wasn't there, if you guys understand. And that happened for the very longest time, that even in high school, well, actually, yeah, it happened for a very long time, that it affected my grades. It affected my grades so bad. Fast forward, I go to high school. My high school was a private school. Go to high school. In high school, you know, we're mixed with, you know, I started high school at 16. I was full of shame, full of like, I just felt like, why am I here? Like, what's the reason? What was the reason? I went to high school. That 2015, it was a very hard year for me. It got to a point where I wanted to off myself. I remember I had a fight with my brother, and I just felt like, oh, if this person, the closest person in my heart, feels like this and does this, then why am I living? And I remember I went to my dad's room, and my dad, I took a whole bunch of pills, accumulated with them, put them here in my hand, and I held them. And I remember as I was about to take them, God just said, why are you doing this? I remember I heard him. He was like, why are you doing this? Don't do that. And that is when I cried so bad that the pills were scattered all over, and I just fell into an infant position. And my cousin came knocking at my dad's room, and she found me the pills everywhere, and then she was like, did you take this pill? Did you do this and that and that? But yeah, so the following year I went to high school, and you know, I met a beautiful girl who was on fire for Jesus Christ. And this girl, she worked on the supernatural of God, and she would share with me these amazing stories. And mind you, I'm still maladaptive daydreaming, guys. I was there in the physical, but my soul wasn't there. I was far every single time. Yeah, so she tells me about these beautiful stories about how God did this for her, how she saw this and everything. And I became so curious, and I was like, I want that. And then she was like, you have to pray. And I was like, okay. And I started praying. I prayed every single day. Every time I knock off school, I get home and I pray and I pray and I pray. And before meeting her, I used to have very bad nightmares. I would dream about snakes, black snakes speaking to me. So anyway, my dream transitioned into beautiful angelic dreams that one day I'll share with you guys. You know, I had beautiful angelic dreams, like every single time, from every time fearing to sleep, like every time I didn't like sleeping because I know that I would dream these nightmares. But this time, every time I would dream, every time I sleep, I would dream these angels. I would dream so much beautiful things that one day I'll talk to you guys about it when God says it's time for you to talk about it. I had so many beautiful dreams, guys. And so something happened, and I got disappointed, and I kind of left God and I stopped praying. And by the way, even during the time when I was praying, I was still maladaptive daydreaming, and I would do episode. Episode is this thing that will stimulate the maladaptive daydreaming. Every time I would be so stressed, right? So anyway, let me explain episode. It will stimulate maladaptive daydreaming. It was like a physical action that I would do to just go along with maladaptive daydreaming, and I would put on a song, and it was mostly secular music. I'd put on a secular song, and I would just imagine this perfect world, daydream. So it was a lot. Every time I would be stressed at school, like a teacher did something, or I liked a boy and the boy didn't like me back, I would just go home. I would just want to go home because I would be so stressed. And maladaptive daydreaming somehow would calm my stress. It was like a coping mechanism. It will calm my stress to just go down there. Because if I'm stressed, you will see like I'm overstimulated. I start biting my nails. Everything will just be so, it'll be a lot. I then finished school in 2019, and I knew the time when I was writing my finals, I knew that I wasn't going to do well. I knew, and I remember I just knew that I wasn't going to do well. And 2020 comes, and then that is when my mom was my rock. When I got the results in January, February, somewhere there, my mom was my rock. I remember when I got the results, I told my mom I had failed, and my mom was like, well, it's okay, you'll get there. That's what she said. She was my rock. Like, that woman is still my rock. And then I was like, okay. And 2020 decided to rewrite, and I moved to Gaps to live with my sister, and it was not okay. It was just not okay. But I won't get into details because it's family matter. But I moved in with her, and mind you, I'm still maladaptive daydreaming. Episode is still there. Everything is just still there. But I remember that time I was tired of doing things by my own will, by my own self. I remember I made a vow with God. I said, God, I'm tired of doing this life thing by myself. So this is how we're going to do it. No matter how short the prayer is, no matter how long the prayer is, I'm never going to stop praying. So every day I made sure that I prayed, right? But still, I was still maladaptive daydreaming. At that point, it's a stronghold. A stronghold, you need deliverance, you need everything. So I started maladaptive daydreaming. I was maladaptive daydreaming at this time. At this other hand, praying. And I knew that during the finals in 2020, that I'm not going to do well, because there's still the stronghold, and I feel like if the stronghold could leave me, life will be better. But the thing is, I was still attached to it. I was so obsessed with it. I was just so addicted to it. And yeah, so fast forward 2021, we come into 2021, and towards the end of 2020, I fell into a depression, but I didn't know that it was a depression, because God was kind of covering me from accepting that demonic thing, well, was covering me, because I got very skinny. It got to a point where I would vomit. The only thing that I could take in my body was water and juice. Other than that, I would vomit. Like, I would literally vomit. My mom would actually get me my favorite meal in the world, and I would eat one, and then when I eat the wings, by the way, my favorite meal in the world are wings, I would eat one, and as I go and eat the second one, I would vomit it out, and I would go and just put it in the fridge. And she was so worried. So I would vomit the food every single time, and I started losing weight. I lost so much weight. I would look for a photo. I would try to look for a photo, and then I put it here and show you guys how bad it was. But it was so bad that I remember there was a man who was cleaning our yard. He told me that, he just asked me, are you dying? Like, are you dying? Are you sick? And then I said, no, I'm actually okay. He was like, hey, I really thought that you were dying. The way you're so skinny, it was scaring me. And I was like, no, I'm okay. And one time my cousin visited me, and she saw how bad I was looking, and you know, she kind of played it cool. But you know, when she went back home to her house and she told her mom, she was like, if you don't do something about her, we're going to hear some bad news very soon, because that's how skinny I was, guys. It was very scary. And that is when I got a call. I randomly got a call. My dad is a person, from my dad by the way, my dad is a person who is not in touch with his feelings, but I feel like he is in some way, but you wouldn't see, right? I get a call from my dad. You go to school, don't worry, don't kill yourself, what, and I was like, what? My mom was like, she was so worried that she never asked me this question. She was like, do you want to see someone? Do you want to go and talk to someone? Do you want to go and sit with someone and talk with that person? And I was like, I'm okay. And I remember after she asked that question, when she left my room, I cried. I was like, why now? Why is she saying this whole thing now? And my aunt was so worried. She was like, you need to bring her to me. She was telling my mom, you need to bring her to me. And that is when, in 2021, I went to live with my aunt. And I remember when I lived with my aunt, I realized how skinny I was. I remember I looked at myself in the mirror and I called my mom crying. I was like, Mom, I cannot go out there in the world looking like this. This is scary. And my mom, because she was far away from me, she got scared and she was like, okay, what do you want us to do? What do you want us to do? And she was like, you know what, I'll look for money so that you go to college and stuff like that. And I was like, no, I want to gain weight. She was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I heard about this protein shake. It's called Ensure, and it's, yeah. And she looked for money and she gave me the money to go buy the protein shake that will help me gain weight. And it didn't happen, it didn't work. So because this thing, you guys have to understand, everything starts from the spiritual. Everything. Paul says that whether we eat, we drink, whether we laugh, we do anything, life is spiritual. So it was very spiritual for me. It was a stronghold at that time because it was COVID and the schools had changed, because usually in where I come from, varsities, they open in August, but that time they changed because of COVID. They were like October 12th, and in October 10th it was my 21st birthday. Celebrated whatever, it was nice. And then October 12th, that is when I started school, and I was so skinny, guys. It was so insane. Anyway, and mind you, I'm still maladaptive daydreaming, even when as the lecturers like teaching us, I'm just there, like, my physical body's there, but I'm not there. But at that time I was like, you know what, let me just try to control this maladaptive daydreaming, because it feels like it's never going to go. Let me just control it. And I tried to control it, and I would pass the test. I would literally ace the test, guys. But the finals came and I didn't ace it, and I remember I was just so sad. I was like, what happened? And I would pray every single day, asking God, and I would just pray every day. That is when God started telling me, well, it was a force. It started off as a force. That force was leading me to read the word. Like, it was leading me to read the word. And I was just like, nah, not yet. And I remember I told my aunt about that force. I was just telling her that, I just feel like there's this force leading me to read the word, and I just don't understand why. She was like, you need to read it then. And then one time I just decided to listen to that force and listen to that voice, and at the same time, that force, it was also forcing me. It was like leading me also to start the YouTube videos and everything, to start like doing YouTubes while also reading the word, right? And I was like, I didn't pick the YouTube side, but I read the word. And during that time, before reading the word, I was asking God, what is faith? Because every sermon that I hear, that I listen to, they always talk about faith, but I don't understand what faith is. What is faith? And immediately when I had listened to that force and I opened the word, God is so good. He led me to the scripture where the woman was sick for 12 years and held Jesus' robe, and she was healed by just holding his robe. And Jesus said, your faith has healed you. You can go on. You're healed. And then I asked God, so that is faith. and then, you know, that is when he revealed a lot of things about faith, and I started being so intrigued by the word. I started reading it again. I read it again, and I made a vow. I made the second vow to God. Every single time I finish praying, every single time I finish praying and I'm about to go to bed, I'll also read the word, and I did that. So that whole thing, it happened, it gradually happened until it graduated to me praying at night, to me waking up praying also and reading my word, right? To me now, like always reading my word. But anyway, so I went back home, and as I began to go back home, because school didn't work out, I went back home. I started reading the word. Mind you, I'm still maladaptive daydreaming, but reading the word, praying every single day. And that is when my other aunt was like, come here, come to my aunt lives in Europe. She was like, come to Europe. I'm the only woman in my family before all of us who believed in God. The rest, they believed in the ancestral worship, but her, she just believed in God. She actually helped a lot of us to, her prayers also helped us to just believe in God. But anyway, she called me and I went to her, and then we started talking. I started telling her about, you know, life and how life is going, and then she started telling me her story. I told her my story. We started talking about God and everything. And then that is when she told me that my sister wants me to go to school again and beat the gun. And I was like, no, I don't want to go. I don't want, it doesn't work out. Like, it just doesn't work out. I just don't want to go. And then she was like, you know what, God is, you know, she was just in you know, telling me about the word and everything. And I was like, okay, let me just go. But I told, and then I lived with, as I went to Gabs at school, I lived with my aunt again, my other aunt, the one that told me to come to her when I was, you know, mind you, still maladaptive daydreaming and still skinny, but I'm eating, which is good. I'm eating very well. I am, you know, reading the word and I'm praying, which is very good, because, you know, the hand of God was all over me. And that is when I went to school and I made sure that God, I have to pass. I remember telling God, I have to pass. And I went to Bitaganelo College, and in Bitaganelo College I did healthcare assistant. I did a course called healthcare assistant, and I aced it. I literally passed. I aced it. Like, I was like, the thing is, I've always been a dreamer, because prior that, God has always showing me getting like a test paper, getting 90-80%, and that was actually my marks in Bitaganelo College. I would get 90%, 80%. I'll just pass, and I knew that God is just touching me and everything. Yeah, so that was my whole school journey, guys. So this whole testimony, it was because as we talk about, okay, as I talk about it right now, in 2020, last year, I think last year, yeah, it was last year, I was free. God healed me from episode, but maladaptive daydreaming, I hadn't healed yet, because it's from the mind, right? And I didn't heal from maladaptive daydreaming. So the beginning of this year, around March, I remember my friend was telling me about this fast, and it was like 2.5 month fast, and I was like, I don't want to join it. But I remember, and it was it was in February 14th, Valentine's Day, and everybody was getting flowers, and I was like, I want flowers. But I was like, I need to be set free. And that is when I got into that fast, and I became devoted in the word. I became locked in. Like, I was seeking God, guys. When I tell you I seeked God, He started revealing a lot of things to me. But anyway, I seeked God, and I was set free from maladaptive daydreaming. So as we speak now, your girl does not do those things anymore. She does not. She lives in the physical, and she's aware of her surrounding, and she is living now. She doesn't, like, she's not in her head anymore, right? So I was set free in February 16th, I think I'll say that. Well, February 14th. Yeah, February 16th, sorry. February 16th of 2026. I was set free from maladaptive daydreaming. I got delivered from it. And the thing is, I was my part of this testimony, I was just going to share the maladaptive daydreaming story, but because I had the school thing had affected a lot of this whole maladaptive daydreaming thing or whatever, and I had so many dreams going back to school. Like in the dream, I would just, okay, let me just put it like this. God would show me in my old school where I was like, I would rather wear my uniform or just be in school at my old school. And I just thought that it was the spirit of delay, because why am I at the old things? But God was just telling me that you are in chains. You are in chains. Unless you talk about it, then you will be set free. So yesterday was just, last night's dream was just my last straw. That was my last straw. I was like, okay, God. And he told me, Refilwe, you need to talk about it. If you don't talk about it, you won't be free from this, because you are ashamed. You are in a cell where chains of shame and regret are just all over you. So you need to be set free. You need to be set free from that. And for you to be set free about it is you need to talk, because yeah, that's what the devil will do. I think that's what happened with Judas. He was so ashamed. He got ashamed, very ashamed, that he knew that what he had done was wrong, and he got ashamed of it, and he regretted it, and he killed himself because of that. He didn't talk about it. Just like he did the same mistake. Well, Peter denied Jesus, and he was in shame for like a few days, and he broke out of it, and he talked about it. He was like, this is what I did. I was the one that denied Jesus, and I was ashamed for like a few days, and now I'm free from it, and now I can spread the word of God. And the thing is, I wasn't spreading the word of God without even talking about what happened, about my life, about maladaptive daydreaming, about everything about my life. And now I know where God called me, and he has called me to share his word, and he has told me 1,000 times that I want you to share my word with my children. And I was just so like into my world. I was like, God, I want to do vlogs, like lifestyle vlogs, nail vlogs, do those vlogs. But God was like, unless you share my word with my kids, you have to be free. I have to set you free. And this is me being set free by God. So that is my testimony, guys. I really hope that you guys are set free from shame, from regret, and talk about it, because we pray to a God. We pray to a God that is powerful, that made the seas, that made the things that lives, the creatures that lives in the sea. He made us, so he's very powerful. And I just pray that you guys are set free, that you guys are no longer bound. The word says that if people are bound in chains, suffering for what they have done, God shows them their sins and their pride, and he makes them listen to his warning to turn away from evil. If they obey God and serve him, they live out their lives in peace and prosperity. Goodness and mercy will follow you all the days of your life. You will no longer be bound. Talk about it, guys. And yeah, guys, and I hope you guys like go to my Instagram, the Instagram about wisdom. It's wisdom_couch. Like, wait, follow, and the videos out there talking about God and everything, because as we said, location heaven, guys. Yeah, guys, and I pray that you guys are no longer bound in shame, in pride, in hurt, in regret, and I pray that my story touches you. Bye.